Most people believe manifestation responds to effort. They believe if they think about something long enough, try hard enough, or apply enough techniques, reality will eventually give in. But the deeper teachings, both old and new, and across every serious manifestation system, all point to something very different. Reality does not respond to effort. It responds to assumption. Not what you say you want, not what you hope for, but what you quietly take for granted as true. This idea appears again and again, whether it is framed spiritually, psychologically, or philosophically. And once you see it, manifestation stops feeling mysterious. It starts feeling precise. Let's begin with a simple, everyday example. Think about how you expect the sun to rise tomorrow. You do not visualize it. You do not affirm it. You do not feel emotional about it. You simply assume that it will rise. And because of that assumption, there is no tension in your body about it happening. That calm expectation is the state manifestation response to. This is the foundation behind the teachings of Neville Goddard. Neville did not teach manifestation as effort. He taught that your life is shaped by what you assume to be true about yourself, not consciously, but internally. For example, if someone assumes they are always overlooked, they do not have to wake up affirming that they are. They simply behave, feel, and react from the assumption that they are overlooked, and life reflects it back without question. Neville called this the law of assumption, not because it is mystical, but because it is automatic. Reality treats your assumptions as instructions. Now, here is where most people get confused. They try to change their life by changing their words, but words do not override assumption. Assumption, however, does override words. You can say, I am confident all day, but if you quietly assume you are not taken seriously, your results will follow the assumption, not the affirmation. This is why affirmations often feel frustrating, because in that moment you are fighting an underlying state instead of changing it. In addition to Neville and his teachings, which focus on assumption, let's look at this from a different perspective. Let's look from the perspective of the teachings of Saint Germain, known as the I Am discourses. The I Am teachings focus heavily on identity, not identity as personality, but identity as being. When the teachings say I am, they are not referring to ego. They are pointing to the position you are occupying internally when you say something feels true. For example, when someone says, I am struggling, they are not describing a moment, they are identifying with a state. The I am discourses emphasize that whatever you attach to I am becomes your actual physical experience. Why? Because your very state defines how consciousness moves. This is not about positive thinking. It is about alignment. For example, if your inner sense of self is aligned with lack, then life will reflect lack. If it's aligned with stability, then life reflects stability. Saint Germain's role in these teachings was not to encourage fantasy. It was to encourage mastery of state. Again and again, the message is the same. You do not command reality from effort. You influence it from inner positioning. Think of positioning like this. Notice how you walk into a room, assuming you belong there. Your body language is relaxed. Your voice is steady. Your attention is grounded. However, notice, if you walk into the exact same room, under the assumption that you do not belong there, nothing externally will have changed, but everything internally will feel different. Your state will have changed, and people will respond to you accordingly. Manifestation works the same way. Now let's make this practical. Imagine someone who assumes money is stressful. They may want abundance. They may even believe in manifestation, but money feels tense in their body. Bills trigger anxiety. Receiving feels temporary. Spending feels risky. Those reactions are not moral failures. They are indicators of internal state. The manifesting state is not created by denying those reactions. It is created by becoming aware of them without trying to fix them immediately. Awareness loosens assumption. This is why Saint Germain emphasized self-observation. Not judgment, not force. Observation. When you observe a state without resisting it, you stop reinforcing it. That is how states change naturally. Now compare that to something you feel confident about. Maybe it's a skill. Maybe it is your ability to figure things out. Maybe it is your resilience. Notice how neutral it feels. That neutrality is power. Manifestation does not require emotional intensity. It requires internal permission, a certain allowing. This is where beginners often relax. You do not need to believe something strongly. You need to allow it to feel reasonable. Neville often said that imagination creates reality. But what he actually meant was that by taking a simple assumption and then by feeling that assumption to be real, will literally cause that assumption to materialize into your reality. Thus, manifestation. Imagination is not fantasy. It is the rehearsal of state. If you imagine something but it feels forced, you are rehearsing lack. If you imagine something and it feels natural, you are rehearsing access. The goal is not to imagine better scenes. The goal is to enter a calmer relationship with possibility. This is how the manifesting state is acquired. You stop asking, how do I make this happen? And you start asking, what would it feel like if this were normal for me? Not exciting, not dramatic. This is why progress often happens quietly. People look back and say, I don't know, it just started working. That was not luck. That was assumption shifting. That was that inner positioning we were talking about earlier. The moment something feels internally allowed, internally okay even, reality reorganizes to match it. This is not spiritual bypassing. It is not ignoring circumstances. It is understanding that circumstances follow state, not the other way around. You do not need to adopt all of these teachings to benefit from them. You only need to notice one thing. What do you assume about yourself when no one is listening? That is the state creating your life. And once you see that, you are no longer trying to manifest. You are simply choosing where to stand on the inside. That is the real work. Subscribe and enter your manifesting state.